Here is the thing. All the videos I've seen so far that talk about It Ends With Us often mention how its central focus and theme is abuse. And they are right. It is a movie that reflects how insidious abuse can be, how abusers wear unassuming faces so well that their partners, their siblings, their colleagues often are not able to spot it immediately. It's a story that on the surface looks like a love story for the first hour and a half of its runtime until things switch drastically into abuse territory at first glance, until you start to see the threads unravel and flashback to incidents that happened previously. It clicks that the switch wasn't drastic, it wasn't sudden, it wasn't out of the blues. It was gradual, it was incremental, and it was done in a way that was purposeful, that was controlled, if you will. And I think that is what is at the heart of It Ends With Us: control. We see this reflected in the movie itself, in its characters, in its stars, particularly Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and in the press that has since surrounded them since its release. Now, full disclaimer before I get into the meat of this video, as I stated at the start, this is a movie that centers abuse and thus therefore can be quite triggering to some people, especially abuse victims. I will be sure to give adequate trigger warnings when I want to delve into the details of the scenes that depict the abuse, which also means that this is a general disclaimer for spoilers. Yes, I will be going into spoilers in this video. This is not a spoiler-free review. And the third disclaimer is pretty straightforward. I have never read a Colleen Hoover book. I have zero interest or desire to read a Colleen Hoover book. If it's your cup of tea, good for you. I would rather retain my sanity, thank you very much. The closest I've gotten to reading Colleen Hoover is via the Twitter thread that the illustrious L of Postcards by L put together, and I will forever be grateful to them for that service, because imagine having to sit down to read gems like, Ellen, I am confident that the next sentence I'm about to write has never been written or spoken aloud before. When he was wiping that cow shit on me, it was quite possibly the most turned on I have ever been.
Wait a damn minute. Wait a damn.
That gem is from It Ends With Us, mind you. Then there's the inspired live. If you mix the letters up in the words like and love, you get live. You can use that word. He laughs again, but this time it's a laugh of relief. He wraps his arms around me and he kisses me with nothing but a hell of a lot of relief. I leave you, Sky, he says against my lips. I leave you so much.
Somebody's detain me!
That is from the book Hopeless, which I personally think captures my feelings at what I just read and you just heard. And then there's Miles, I say with a smile. You're looking at me like you fell in love with me. He shakes his head. I didn't fall in love with you, Tate. I flew.
Oh, hell no!
Yes, you heard that right. Dude hopped on a jet into Lovetown. That quote is from Ugly Love, and those three passages were confirmation to me that I didn't make any errors in my judgment in choosing to never pick up a Colleen Hoover book. But because I haven't read any of her books, inclusive of the self-same titled It Ends With Us, it means therefore that the thoughts I'm sharing in this video have nothing to do with the books. I'm going off of what we watched in the 2-hour runtime of the movie, no more, no less. So although I heard that there was a ton of back and forth with Lily working her way slowly to eventually leave Ryle in the books, we didn't get that in the movie, so that won't feature in this video's analysis, for example. Oh, also, I have the timestamps for the video, just in case you want to skip certain parts of it. So with that out of the way, let's kick things off officially with a not-so-quick synopsis of the movie. It Ends With Us is a story that focused on Lily Blossom Bloom. Yes, that is her real name. I think Colleen thought it was quirky or something, but Lily is an aspiring florist who visits home to attend her father's funeral service. She walks out of the service, however, without giving a eulogy for reasons we immediately suspect but have confirmed later in the movie. Yes, it is for the reason you think it is. Anyway, Lily, upset, finds herself on the rooftop of a building where she runs into hot, sexy neurosurgeon Ryle Kincaid, who flirts heavily with her in a way that would have any woman who is ideally security conscious running for the hills. But Lily is quite turned on by the flirtations and would have totally taken him up on his offer at that point, except their midnight tryst is interrupted by a call that means Ryle has to go in for surgery that he is to supervise. Fast forward a couple of months, This movie has a weird and jarring way of using time skips that you're only able to really figure out by how much older Blake Lively looks in her scenes, which, not gonna lie, when I clocked it, I was quite impressed with. But back to the synopsis. It's been a couple of months. Lily has at last opened her florist shop, and in walks Miss Alyssa from off the street, and next thing you know, she's now Lily's assistant. And would you know it, also the sister of Ryle, which I'm not sure if she's his older sister or younger sister. I think older, for reasons we'll get into later. But if you've seen the movie, was it ever mentioned? Wondering if I missed it. And if it wasn't mentioned, do you think she's older or younger? But yeah, Alyssa is Ryle's sister, which brings him back into Lily's orbit. And at Alyssa's birthday, it hits on Lily again. They kiss, she follows him to his apartment, they make out some more, but then she pulls the brakes, tells him that she doesn't do casual relationships, and the next morning, he asks her if he can date her. More time skips. They're happy and in love. He finagles and invites to join her on the lunch outing she has with her mother at a new restaurant in town called Root, which happens to be owned and run by Lily's ex-boyfriend who she lost her virginity to, named Atlas. And it is through her recollection of her time with Atlas that we learn that Lily's father was abusive to her mother, hence her not having anything to say about the man at his funeral, which understandable. But clearly, abuse is a touchy subject for Lily and Atlas, and we will come to that later on in the movie. Oh, also, the movie, in addition to a ton of time skips, also does a lot of flashbacks, using that to show Lily's perception of her parents' abusive marriage and her relationship with Atlas, who we realize she really loved, and who loved her back, just as hard and just as deep. Anyway, one day, Ryle is cooking, stuff happens, and he, trigger warning, accidentally hits Lily. He's immediately apologetic, and Lily forgives him, then tries and fails in using makeup to hide the black eye because Alyssa and her husband are excited to try out the hot new restaurant in town with Ryle and Lily. Lily doesn't want to go because, like I said, Root is run by Atlas, but Alyssa wants to eat there, and so Lily goes in. And at Root, Alyssa and Marshall drop the news that they are expecting. Amidst this celebration, Atlas shows up, notices Lily's bruise, corners her to ask her if she's being abused. Remember, I said this is a touchy subject for them? She insists that it's an accident, but Atlas isn't buying it. By the time she steps out of this storage area where Atlas had pulled her into, it's to meet Ryle, who loses his shit at seeing Atlas also step out from this same room that the two of them were previously locked in together. The two men brawl. Ryle is kicked out and banned from the restaurant. It demands that Lily promise to never go near Atlas or his restaurant again. She does. Fast forward a couple more months, Atlas shows up at Lily's florist shop, gives her his phone number. He doesn't input the number directly into our phone like most sensible, logical people would do, mind you. Nope. He writes it on a piece of paper and slides it underneath her phone case. Clearly, this is Chekhov's gun, and that gun by the gods will go off. At this point, everyone is just waiting for when that would happen. But back to the movie. Alyssa has a baby girl, and right in the hospital room, Ryle gets baby fever and proposes to Lily. She says yes. Another time skip, and they are married. She's on a video call with her mother, hears a sound, hangs up to go check on her husband, who has now at this point lost his shit because he found that piece of paper after how many years, months, we don't know at this point. The movie never clarifies, but in the not even 5 minutes of conversation Lily had with her mom on the phone, Ryle found the paper with Atlas's number, called the number, and placed Atlas's voice. He's angry, he storms out. Lily follows him out. She begs him whilst they're on the stairs, and trigger warning, he pushes her down the stairs. When she regains consciousness, he does that thing where he tries to have her doubt her memories of what happened by saying she tripped and fell, and he didn't take her to the hospital, mind you, but instead, because you know, neurosurgeon, he patches her up at home. More of that time skip, and Lily's florist shop is featured in a top business to look out for in Boston article for a Boston business magazine. She's happy and notices that the top business was given to Root, and Atlas gave a sort of interview. She gets home and Ryle comes in. He also seemingly happy at first at the mention given to her business. until we realize that he caught sight of Atlas's feature, and then all bets go off because now he knows that the tattoo that Lily has above her collarbone is the same as the Root. That is the name of Atlas's restaurant, because in the feature, Atlas mentioned how Root was inspired by his ex-girlfriend who he was in love with. Ryle, driven by jealousy, trigger warning, bites Lily above her collarbone like he was trying to cut out the tattoo with his teeth or something, and then proceeds to attempt to, trigger warning again, rape her. Lily breaks free, escapes to Atlas, who takes her to the hospital where she's checked out, given a tetanus shot cause the bite marks, and informed that they can't give her an x-ray because she's pregnant. Lily moves out, ignores Ryle, breaks the news of his abuse to Alyssa, who is shocked, and also tells Lily after the latter asks that Ryle, at age 6, accidentally shot their older brother Emerson and has borne the scar and guilt and grief of that ever since. Which is why I wonder if she's the older sister, because if she's younger and Ryle was 6 when this happened, then isn't she awfully young to have such clear memories of what happened? Or does she remember because of the trauma? Anyway, back to the movie. Lily later asks her mother why she stayed with her father, and her mother responds that it would have been harder for her to leave. Plus, she loved her late husband. Later, we see Ryle help Lily put together the baby's crib, and after Lily gives birth to a daughter, she tells Ryle that she wants a divorce as she doesn't want her daughter to have to watch her mother be abused like she did, and later tells the baby that it ends with us. Now, if I was the person editing this film, I would have ended it right there. Solid wrap of the story, great callback to the title, message delivered, we're good. But nah, the movie keeps going on, several more time skip. The baby, who is named Emerson after Ryle's late brother and called Emmy for short, is much older, and Lily runs into Atlas and they do that soft light, soft glow thing as the two of them smile at each other that clearly hints that they will be getting back together if we get a sequel. And from what I heard, that was the focus of the sequel to the book, aptly titled It Starts With Us. Colleen, you need help with those titles, man. But anyway, that is my way too long, definitely not a summary of events that happened in the movie. And with that synopsis out of the way, I'm sure even as I was narrating what happened in the movie, you most likely have already taken note of the instances of control that we got to see in the film, and how all this push and pull and scramble for control all centered our lead character, Lily Blossom Bloom, who all these other characters sought to control in varying ways, while she herself navigated those relationships, ceding control in certain instances, wielding control in others. I found it interesting to watch happen. The movie starts with Lily's mother, Jenny, pressuring her about the eulogy she was to write for her father, Andrew's funeral, who was played by Owen Hunt, which I personally was like, of course, he was a piece of shit in Grays, and look at him being a piece of shit in It Ends With Us. A pity really, because apparently Kevin McKidd is a great person in real life. I just wish they stopped casting him in roles where he turns out to be a piece of shit. Although he did play that role of Andrew Bloom brilliantly well. But back to Jenny, who kept trying to force Lily to write the eulogy, insisting that she can just write 5 things she loved about her father to read at the funeral. But like I stated, Lily left the funeral without saying a word, and the movie ends with her placing that blank sheet of paper at her father's tombstone before walking away with her daughter and her mother. But the insistence at her daughter writing the eulogy for me was a way for Jenny Bloom to control the narrative. It is clear that she wanted to control the perception of her abusive husband as a loving husband and father, and thus needed Lily to co-sign that perception by giving somewhat of a loving eulogy. And we will see this control of perception that the characters need Lily to co-sign with Ryle as well. After a trigger warning hits her due to his frustration to the food that was burning and Lily's laughter and giggled comment that she had warned him about the impending disaster, he spends that time trying to comfort her, but also to push that narrative and control her perception of things, i.e., he didn't hit her because he was upset, but because it was an accident and he was in a hurry to turn off the stove and shut down the smoke alarms. It wasn't until much later when Lily's memory of the situation comes into better focus and she starts to remember remembering how things actually happened that she's finally able to piece together how and why she was hit. That this man that she loved did react out of anger and humiliation, and after doing so, tried to control how she interpreted the incident so he could manipulate her into not leaving and could continue to exercise that control over her. And we see this taking a step further after he, trigger warning, pushes her down the stairs. When she comes to, it takes deliberate care to try and control her remembrance of the event so he can manipulate her into believing that she fell all on her own, attempting to brainwash her into doubting her own mind and memories. Also, he can, just as is always done, control the narrative and control her to keep her from leaving him. Even when he talks about instances prior to that point, when she knocked into a table and accidentally hurt herself in the past, he was the one saying those things, like he needed her to believe that so she could give a convincing enough performance to others so they too would believe that. He needed Lily, doubting herself and her memories, to keep his abuse secret and keep the perception others have of him a controlled one, that of a loving husband and partner. And I'm not surprised really that control is a big thing for Ryle. The first time Lily meets him, he tries to control her actions, demanding out of a sense of concern that she get down from a ledge that she had initially told him she felt perfectly safe and secure staying on. He tried multiple times to get her to budge, and when she doesn't, he joins her there. I read that scene personally as him trying and testing her boundaries, testing what level of control she will be willing to cede to him, and at that first meeting, Lily refuses to budge. We see at the start of their relationship that Lily is in control of herself, very familiar with what she wants and is unafraid to voice that. In fact, when I was watching their interaction at the start of their relationship, as Ryle pushed and flirted and prodded, Lily was the one who was seemingly in control. She directed the pace of their relationship. She controlled when they kissed, when they got physical, how their relationship progressed. But then, after walking out of the movie and sitting with it, I got to thinking, was it Lily that was in control, or did Ryle make her think she was in control to have her ease up on her guard? Because if we establish that their first meeting was Ryle pushing to see how much he could get away with in controlling her, and then realizing that he would need to play things with her a different way to get her to let down her guard and cave and give in to him, then it becomes even more insidious, especially when you consider that this is a man who is young, rich, and very successful at his career, a career that people jokingly say gives those who are proficient in it God complexes. And so I had myself asking, did he take her nose as actual nose, or just a chance for him to ease off briefly, to re-strategize, and then try again to manipulate her into giving a yes? Every single major turning point in their relationship was always orchestrated to happen in the presence of other people, which places a subtle burden and expectation on Lily and her responses, which in turn end up taking the control from her and putting it with him, who made the spectacle a public one. He asks her to date him in the presence of his sister. He asks her to marry him in the presence of his sister and her husband. And it's subtle, but you see the shifts when it happens. And when it's not in the presence of other people, it's still something he reaches for whilst they are in public. For example, demanding publicly, immediately after his altercation with Atlas, that Lily never see Atlas, someone who was a crucial part of her life, ever again. It does this publicly, placing quite the burden on Lily, who is still reeling from everything that happened in the restaurant, and in a bid to calm him down, she agrees. And even at the end, he tries to wield their daughter as something that can be used to control the situation and manipulate his way into getting Lily's forgiveness. Lily pushes back and holds tightly to that control, though, refusing to relinquish it so she can help protect her daughter and break that cycle of abuse. Even the way in which Alyssa worked her way into working for Lily was also controlling. She showed up as a stranger that Lily doesn't know from jack shit to worm her way into getting a job, not because she needs one, but because she was bored and needing excitement, as we learned that Marshall, Alyssa's husband, who is played by Hassan Minhaj, is rich. Alyssa just wants company and something to do, and she latches onto Lily, who initially, when she first shows up, tells her she doesn't really need an assistant. But then in the course of their conversation, finds herself agreeing to take Alyssa on. The start of their relationship and friendship is born from Alyssa not really respecting Lily's boundaries, and I found it interesting that their last scene together was still written and filmed in a way that seemed like Alyssa was trying to help justify Ryle's behavior by talking about their older brother's death and how that took a toll on Ryle, which led to him becoming what he eventually became. It seemed to me like she was still trying to control that perception of Ryle as not being an abusive person for the sake of being abusive, but that he was a victim of his circumstance and tragedy that turned him into who he then became. But like I said, that entire bit just seemed focused on controlling Lily and by extension, the audience's thoughts and feelings with regards Ryle and his motivations and his reason for being. Of course, she ends by insisting that she doesn't want Lily to ever take her brother back, were she to speak from her position as Lily's best friend. But she had earlier mentioned that as Ryle's sister, she hoped Lily would forgive him and give him another chance. And so her saying that as Lily's best friend, she doesn't want Lily to forgive her brother just seemed like a bit of manipulation and her grasping for some control. And even Atlas still had a moment of being controlling. Like, I understand that abuse is a sore subject for both he and Lily because of their history and their past, but him grabbing Lily at the restaurant and forcing her into the room to semi-berate her into admitting that she was being abused was, in my own opinion, not a good look on him. Plus, he was also being controlling in that scene. And I guess with Atlas, the movie tried to show us that there is a right and wrong way to reach out and help someone who you suspect is being abused. Atlas's action in that scene further endangered Lily, and him stepping out of the room and proceeding to engage in that brawl with him and Ryle both ignoring Lily's cries and requests for them to stop was them both battling for control with no actual concern or thought for Lily, who was the victim of that entire scene and situation. This is something that was consistent for Lily throughout the movie. All these characters sought in some way to influence her behavior, her actions, and her decisions. Even her father's rage that had him almost killing Atlas when he discovered the latter in Lily's bedroom was driven by Andrew Bloom's desire to control Lily's sexuality and chastity. And thus, Atlas, who he saw had a sexual relationship with his daughter, had to be beaten within an inch of his life to try and regain his control, and by his I mean Andrew's control over Lily. And so I find it interesting that the character in the show with the least amount of control, who then had to wrestle that control back at the end of the movie, was played by an actress who wielded an immense amount of control in the production of the film as one of his producers. Yes, this is where we talk about the drama that has been happening during the press junket of It Ends With Us, with a focus on the drama between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Now, the drama started with people on TikTok making speculations about Justin's seeming absence from the press run for It Ends With Us. Now, I know why TikTok is focusing extra hard on the movie. It was the platform that helped to boost sales for the books, and it has been implied that it is also because of the success of TikTok that had Colleen write the sequel to the book It Starts With Us. So it makes sense that fans of the books will be extra eagle-eyed with regards to the movie, and so they noticed Justin's absence, which they immediately turned into cries about there being possibly fiction within the cast. Then rumors and speculations started circulating about talks of how Justin was being chauvinistic and seemingly wanted to have the film center Ryle and ignore Lily and her emotions and reactions to what was happening, which, if that is truly the case, makes no sense, as It Ends With Us clearly focuses on Lily. She says the title of the film, it is about her being an abuse victim who is seeking to break the cycle of abuse for herself and her daughter. She should be the one to control the narrative that is being told, as it's her story, not Ryle's. So I don't know if I believe that personally. But there was speculation that Blake called her husband Ryan Reynolds to help write scenes in the movie, specifically the rooftop scene. And if that is truly the case, then it is yet another instance of Blake trying to control the story that is being told in a way that is comfortable to her and is aligned with her vision of what should be done. This in addition to The Hollywood Reporter reporting that multiple sources claimed that Blake commissioned a cut of the movie from video editor Shane Reed makes me think that it is very probable and does speak to a level of trying to maintain control over this particular production. And it aligns with Justin's interviews where he has stated that he made the conscious decision to step back in making the film as he believed that the women, and most specifically the people brought on board to help tell the story of an abused victim in an authentic way, should be the one to take center stage with such an important story to be told.
No, this isn't my night. This is a night for all the women who we made this movie for. This is a night for Blake. This is a night for Colleen. I'm just so grateful that we're here. 5 years in the making.
It all tracks that he ceded control to others. He believes should be the ones having this moment, being the focus of this conversation that is a necessary, albeit heartbreaking one. Of course, I do think that him having to give up that control and how the production most likely played out is what is behind the statement he gave in the interview about him believing that Blake is most suited to take on the director's role for the sequel, should it ever be made.
I think there are better people for that one.
Justin.
I think Blake Lively's ready to direct. That's what I think. So
He's subtly pointing out that she loves to have control and take control and be in control, and he doesn't want to have to battle for that sequel-wise. And honestly, I doubt if he would want to be a part of the sequel, really. With the way everything has been blown out of proportion and the backlash is received from all the speculation, I mean, the recent update on this entire drama, which a skeptical part of me still wonders if it's not all for marketing purposes, is that Justin has hired a PR crisis manager, Melissa Nathan, to help him handle the negative press and publicity is gotten with how the internet has decided to run with the story that he and Blake are on the outs. PR work is crisis and image management, and it's all about controlling how their clients are viewed and talked about and perceived in public, which is so apt and a weird way of life imitating art at this point. Except, of course, Melissa Nathan also has Johnny Depp as one of her clients, which is a bit, But away from Justin and onto Blake, because she too is dealing with some backlash born out of how she has been responding to a lot of the interviews with a focus on promoting her business and being very dismissive in some instances. Plus, her choice to be funny and tell jokes has rubbed a lot of the fans the wrong way, because the topic is one that is weighty and heavy, and the expectation is that the press junket would maintain that tone, would be controlled in how they executed things. The movie's marketing already got things off on the wrong foot, with a lot of people assuming wrongly that it was a rom-com. And now that the press tour is ongoing, the expectation is that the promotion would be controlled in a way that the power and influence is given back to those at the center of It Ends With Us. It's not Blake Lively or Justin Baldoni. No, those for whom the control has to be restored are the victims of abuse, who are ultimately the ones at the heart of It Ends With Us, and for whom the press junket should have centered around. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree with me? Like this video if you do, dislike this video if you don't. Take control of how you navigate these spaces and interact with my content. I will drop in the description box links to organizations who aim to help victims of domestic abuse if you would like to learn more or want to ask for help. If you think anyone else should watch this video, do share it. It helps my channel grow and is incredibly supportive of my content, which is a great time for me to say a big thank you to my patrons who help me keep my lights on. Thank you. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, the link to do so is in the description box as well. I make videos 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All my videos drop at 5 p.m. EST on upload days. Whilst you wait for new content from me, and if you're a Bridgerton fan, then consider checking out my Sex Isn't the Same as Intimacy Pauline video. Until my next video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.